and welcome to this episode. Hello and welcome to this episode. Today I'm packing all my stuff in the suitcase and the boxes around me because tomorrow I'm moving into a new apartment here in Paris. This is actually going to be the second apartment I rent in the city in the space over the last 9 months that I've lived here. Back in December, when I started looking for the first apartment rental, I spent 3 frustrating and incredibly anxious weeks doing so. Luckily, I found this place. Now, recently, when I started looking for the new apartment, I spent another 2 weeks searching for that. And I'm going to share with you some advice on how to find a good apartment to rent in Paris, which is going to be especially useful for people who are moving here, who are expats like myself, and who don't have much experience, don't know on where to go and what to look for. First of all, let's talk about the real estate market of Paris in general. There are 3 things you need to know about it. First thing, the demand is much higher than the supply, which means that you have to move quick. When you find the right apartment, call or email the owner right away. Don't wait. The second thing, which is the result of the first one, obviously, prices are quite high. I think it's no surprise to anyone that Paris is quite an expensive city. But if you're looking for an apartment to rent in Paris, you have to carefully assess your budget, as well as look at many listings to find out the right combination of the price versus the location versus the condition of the apartment, and obviously how big the apartment is. On average, my experience, like I was looking at a budget of 1,200 euros per month. For that kind of money, what you can expect to get in Paris is either a small studio, or if you get really lucky, like I got lucky with this apartment, it's going to be a 1-bedroom apartment, but the size would be probably around 35 square meters tops. And the third thing you need to know about the real estate market in Paris is that it's really challenging to find a decent option if you're an expat, because you don't have all these documents that usually owners of apartments or agencies require you to show here. Now, when you start looking for the apartment to rent in Paris, where do you go? Well, basically, I think you have 2 options. The first option is an agency, a real estate agency. I didn't use that option, and I think it's not the best option to use for several reasons. And the second option would obviously be the website where all the apartments are listed for rent. In France, there is this website called leboncoin.fr. I will put the link to that website in the description of this video. This is the biggest website where actually you can sell anything, but they have like a separate section for apartments and houses to rent, and they have a lot of supply. And in many cases, most of the cases is direct apartment owners, but there are also agencies, and you can based on the listing, you can identify which is the listing from the agency and which listings are from the regular apartment owners. Before you start your search, obviously you have your criteria like the budget or what kind of apartment you're looking for. But for Paris, I think one of the most important things to consider is the location of the apartment. If you look at the map of Paris, it's like this circular inner city, which is surrounded by the Boulevard Périphérique, which is the road that surrounds Paris in a circle. So anything inside that circle is considered Paris, the inner city. There are lots of areas outside of Paris which have their own names, like Évry-sur-Seine or Neuilly-sur-Seine, these kind of local neighborhoods. And in some of them, prices are actually cheaper than in the center of Paris, but there are some posh neighborhoods, especially in the western part of the city, where you will be expected to pay similar money as in the center of the city, or even higher than in the center of the city. There are some areas of Paris that probably should be avoided at all costs. I would advise to avoid the northern part of Paris altogether, the 18th, the 20th, the 19th arrondissement. So if you're looking at the map of Paris, just cut out the top point of this circle and look for apartments anywhere else. So for this part of the video, I'm going to jump on my laptop and get more comfortable on the couch, because I'm just tired of balancing myself on this suitcase. Now let's talk about the most frustrating thing about apartment rental search in Paris, which is the dossier. So the dossier is a list of documents that most of the apartment owners require you to show even before you schedule a visit to the apartment. So that kind of list includes different documents, but the majority of people ask you to provide a copy of your ID, your proof of address, your employment contract, your last 3 salary documents, and even sometimes your taxes. You have to show your taxes. So as you might imagine, for a foreigner who's coming here for the first time to live or to work for a long term here in Paris, these documents are virtually impossible to provide altogether. So it seems like such a mess and such a nonsense to come up with this kind of requirements, but that's the way the French market works, and you cannot avoid that. However, in my apartment searches, I found a way to hack this and to avoid this whole dossier nonsense altogether. So this is where the sous-location comes to play. Sous-location in French means sublease. And this is the kind of scenario where you rent an apartment from someone who is already renting this apartment from the apartment owner. So for example, this might happen in a case when a person needs to go to another country, needs to leave Paris for some reason, for an extended period of time, like 3, 6 or a month or even a year, and that person doesn't want to lose that apartment when he or she comes back. And this is where you need to be vigilant, and this is where you need to really take a close look at these kind of offers on the market, because these offers, they don't have that much demand from regular French people who are obviously looking for long-term commitments usually. These kind of offers usually have a slightly better price, so that's also one benefit of sublease. And as a foreigner, this is basically your only way to avoid providing this dossier and any documents that you might be required in case of a regular apartment rental. Now, I know this is not an ideal scenario for somebody who wants to settle for a long term, but again, as a foreigner, you don't have much of a choice. You don't have that many options if you don't have the complete dossier. So this is basically the biggest hack that I found in the French rental market, is that if you look carefully for these kind of ads on leboncoin, if you're looking for sous-location, that's probably the best scenario for you if you're a foreign person arriving to live in France. And one more tip is that when you're looking on the list of apartments in leboncoin, you will usually have sous-location listed in the name of the ad. So in the end, let me sum up this video for you. Here's a step-by-step instruction on how to find the perfect apartment rental in Paris. First, go to leboncoin.fr. It's the biggest website, they have the best supply. Most of the listings are directly from apartment owners. You will stay away from the agencies, you won't have to pay extra fees, and they're not that helpful in any case. Second, study all the listings very carefully. Please, by any means, avoid anything that looks like a scam. Never ever send any kind of money in advance, especially before the apartment visits. Third, if you're a foreigner just arriving in Paris and you want to avoid all this hassle and the nonsense with the dossier and all this required documents, look for the sous-location. It's a sublease. It might not be mentioned in the title of the listing, but check the description. It might say there that the person is just renting out for 3 or 6 or 9 months. This might be your best option. In case if the owner is still requiring some documents, you always have a room to negotiate, because you know that that owner of the apartment is also very interested in renting it, because it's only for the short-term rental. And last but not least, make sure that you check the contract very carefully. In case it's a sous-location, make sure that all the arrangement works between the original apartment owner and the person who you're renting from. And finally, just have patience. This is not an easy process, indeed. if you're looking especially for colocation, there are very few offers like this on the market. So you might want to reserve extra time for that apartment rental search. I would advise to have at least 2 or 3 weeks for that search. You can create alerts on leboncoin, you can create special searches with the filters you have. Just make sure that you in this whole process that you are vigilant, that you're careful, and that you just enjoy the experience as much as you can, because after all, once you sign the contract, you have a place to live in Paris, one of the beautiful cities in the world. So yeah, that's it for now. Thanks for watching this video, and see you next time.